Okay. All right, ready?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So today we have Jeff here. I'm Ren. And so why do we doing a podcast like this today, Jeff?
So today we want to talk about mindfulness and with the theme of entrepreneurship. Both of us are entrepreneurs. We both have companies and we both deal with a lot of struggles, have some successes with things, a lot of ups and downs. So we kind of just want to talk about just what are different tips, different day-to-day things that we do, and just how do we deal with all of that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people may be interested in what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think it relates a lot because it's not just one piece of it. It's not just like meditation is the be all and end all that will make everything else easier.
Mhm.
But I think it's a lot of having that mindset of being mindful and kind of stepping back and looking into yourself and just having a regular practice that you kind of do on a day-to-day basis
Mhm.
and or just the general way that you look at things.
Mhm.
So that really interests me because there's a lot of people that they have businesses. There's a lot of people that want to start a business and it can be stressful at times. It can be overwhelming. There could be good times and bad times. And a lot of people talk about, okay, what are the nuts and bolts of how do you actually start it? How do you get clients? What do you do as far as all that?
Mhm.
But there's a lot more as far as internal work that I think a lot of business owners or a
Don't
lot
talk
of
about, right?
entrepreneurs need to do.
Mhm.
So for them to be very successful just with their business, it also helps if they work not just on their business, but they work on themselves as well,
Mhm.
and it's a day-to-day thing with it. So I think that's a good place for us to start with just kind of what do you see as being mindful
Mm.
and how does that play into your business?
For me, I think the benefit from that is you when you meditate you or practice mindfulness, I think you kind of become like an also an observer of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a watcher and observer. So when you get into start to get into like a rabbit hole, or maybe for example, I like to play Chinese chess.
Yeah.
So I do set like a time limit for myself, like not to play like on weekdays, not to play more than half an hour. So sometimes maybe you kind of get past that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I feel like there's like an observer of me or a watcher say, okay, you passed the time already. Okay,
Yeah.
are you going to continue? Let's say you continue another game. That observer doesn't just disappear. It's like a constant reminder for yourself. Oh, you've been distracted. You've
Yeah.
been distracted. So what are you going to do? It doesn't. It still gives myself the chance to make the choice. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, I felt like mindfulness that really helps me is there's like you yourself is watching your back. That's how
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah, and it reminds me there's this book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now, and in that he does mention about like being the watcher. It reminds me of that because then he does say about being the watcher and being conscious of your thoughts,
Yeah.
and you're not your mind, you're not your thoughts,
Hmm.
and realizing that that's something kind of outside of yourself because everybody has day to day. You have so many thoughts going
Yeah.
on,
The
so
Power
many.
of Now, the book,
Yes,
right?
they're very good book,
Yeah.
very good,
Hmm.
and it's a lot about just living in the current moment. All of us, if we have different struggles, if we have things that are going on where they appear like they're bad, most likely
Hmm.
it's either in the past or it's in the future. We're worried about something that's going to happen, or we're worried about something that did happen before,
Hmm.
and it's not necessarily now in this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And it's some part of realizing that and becoming the watcher, like you were
Hmm.
mentioning, and being conscious about okay, what thoughts am I having? Why am I having these thoughts? Because so many things that just happen day to day, it's not there's no kind of basis behind it. It's just
Yeah.
we're just kind of have our wheels spinning in our
Yeah.
head and just worried about things for nothing.
And I think is as you become more aware or more conscious, like you don't identify yourself as you are the thought
Mm-hmm.
because um, there are many reasons you have those thoughts. It could be some experiences from the past. It could come up of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Or some people, if you believe there's like past lives, that might have an impact. We're not going to get into that, but I
Yeah.
think just out of nowhere, and sometimes it's so random. But if you believe there's a reason for that, but sometimes it's just so random and it's so you cannot really explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that being having that mindfulness or having that a watcher for yourself helps you to make choices. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I do believe that by having that, call it superpower or consciousness, this helps you to make your own choice instead of being so unconscious.
Yeah. And I've heard there's different tactics, different things that people can do on a daily basis to kind of watch this. Like some people, I've heard they'll set an alarm on their phone where it goes off like once an hour. And when it goes off, you look and you think, okay, what am I thinking right now? Where am I at in my headspace?
Do you do that?
I don't do it, but I have heard some people recommend that, where it's a way, if you're trying to figure out what are these thoughts that you have, what's going on in your head, it's not a bad way to just catch yourself. Because sometimes we just get caught up in our thoughts.
Especially as we run businesses, there's so many ideas and things going on all the time. And
yeah, and like a lot of times, so like for me, I run a marketing agency and I'll deal with clients where they have 50,000 different ideas for all the things that they want to do. And a lot of it is they have the potential to have so much just success with everything, but they tend to spread themselves thin and they're just kind of scatterbrained with everything that they want to do.
Is that a common problem you see?
It is, yeah.
It is. Is that one of the top three?
One of the top, that would be one of the top three, and it's also focusing on things that don't necessarily matter. Like they'll get so in the weeds of, oh, this has to be absolutely perfect, where we have to use this kind of font size and this color and this thing, and it's more of just getting going, even if it's not perfect, just getting that momentum, getting that start, and focusing on one thing and doing that well. And then when you have that, then you can focus on other things. But there's so many where they could take weeks, it'll take months, where they're just focused on all of these other things where it's just not the top priority thing they should be, but they just don't know. They just haven't taken the time to slow down and be like, you know what, let's just focus on what matters. Let's get some traction, let's get some momentum, and then slowly start to do more of that. And some of it, I think, comes from just there's so many times we don't know what we should be doing, so we want to do everything. And it's like, you just don't know. There are 50,000 things that we could do. And I think when you have that mindfulness as a regular practice, where, so like for me, what I try to do, and I don't do it every day, but I do make an attempt to, where in the morning I'll do journaling and write down.
You said you've been doing like at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, so I have been getting, I'm not on like the years and years and years streak like you have, but I do make a conscious effort to keep that where 10 minutes a day. I will do some form of meditation, whether it's on YouTube, whether you can wear that little headset and it'll like track your brain waves.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah, I like that. And you hear like the little birds chirping in the background when you're all calm and everything. So that's a nice little way to just clear your mind and get better with it. So I think that's a really good way to do it, but it doesn't necessarily matter if you do it for hours or anything like that. I think what I find is better is just having that consistency where
I totally
each day
agree.
you do something. So like how often do you meditate, or how often do you make for mindfulness each day?
Well, my habit, which is at least 10 minutes in the morning and at least 5 minutes at night. But I don't really, I sometimes use an app, which is like, it just play like the singing bowl. Like, ding, that sound. So it just kind of repeats in different patterns, but it's the same sound. But sometimes I don't play anything. So those are the two. I rarely, but seldomly do the guided meditation. But when I began meditation, I use a little bit more tools, but I found out that myself, I would use like a timer. But most often I don't time myself. You kind of know how long. And then at night I don't, because I'm just doing 5 minutes. So so most of the time in the range of maybe 4 to 7 minutes. But I do agree, it's not to break the chain. And I think we can talk about this a little bit later. As you began, when I began the meditation like years ago, I felt like after maybe a month to two, you sense a difference. But everyone's like, I started meditation not knowing what would it do, and then through a self-discovery, journey, kind of experience some ups and downs in life, and then you kind of tie things together. That was for me.
I think that break the chain is excellent to do. 'Cause I've done that in the past with trying to get like a morning routine and trying to get consistency with everything. What I would do is have like one of those giant wall calendars, and I would have the days of the month there. And then every day, just take a big marker and just put an X.
You do that now?
I did before. I did. Now I've just naturally gotten a little bit more consistent with it. But in the past, when I was struggling with it, then they'll just take it, put an X on there,
uh.
and you get to see how long you can keep the chain
Do
going.
you do it first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I tend to do that. And then I just heard somebody mention, I haven't done this, but I heard somebody mention on like a podcast, an interview a few weeks ago, they said that one technique that they have is they did that same thing with the X, and they took $100, they placed it next to their door, they did it for exercising. And if they ever were to break the chain on there, then they would take the $100 and they would burn the $100. So it's like a very extreme way.
Yeah.
So every time they got to think, you know what, I at least want to exercise for 5 or 10 minutes just to go out for a jog or anything like that. So they would have that thought, like, is it worth it to go ahead and burn that $100? And it's like some type of motivation, and or some things that also help me.
Kind of like a punishment.
Yeah, exactly. Some type of punishment also helps if, like, I have had it where you just tell people what you're doing, and you're like, you know what, I'm doing this as a regular practice, and have some type of accountability partner, and I think that's really good. But yeah, the biggest thing is I've just found where at least there is that sense of accomplishment if you do anything in the morning. So I try to do journaling, do that for like 5 or 10 minutes, nothing crazy, just write down. What I like to start with is gratitude, and I know that's something you do too.
Oh yeah.
Just write what you're grateful for.
Yeah, on my iPhone I do that.
And other times there's just a lot going on, and I'm like, okay, I got like 7 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Let me go ahead and just check this off.
I think at that time they said I just got 7 minutes and you still do it. I think those are the time that really solidify your practice. I think those are the times that you don't have the time to really do all your props and stuff like that, but you still just sit there and do even 3 minutes. I do that at times. Let's say I go golf and at the parking lot, I would do like a few minutes so that I got that in, and then like I said, that's the what matters.
And you have that sense of accomplishment where you actually did it. It's like there was this guy who became famous. He gave a speech. He wrote a book and everything about make your bed first thing in the morning. And it was like I think a general or somebody in the military.
I started doing that like not too long, because my thinking back is when I'm not the one that would do your bed. And the reason I think a lot of the people who don't do their bed is that, oh, you're gonna sleep at it at night anyway. Yeah. So I was that type of person. But I think like you said, is the accomplishment. Like just and then
it's done.
And it's done.
And you get that little tiny goal, that little tiny milestone that you can check off, that little tiny accomplishment, and then that'll set you up for more and more after that. Yeah. And I think for everybody's different. Some people like to have something structured, some people don't. For me, I like to at least have an idea of, you know what, I'm going to do this each morning. So there's one book I read a long time ago, not a long time, maybe like 8 years or so. It was called Miracle Morning.
Oh, I read that too.
Yeah, and that was a really good way where I wasn't into having the morning routine. I was more just kind of fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing in the morning. And that was a good way to kind of give me something a structure to get started with.
I forgot the author's name, but even his story is very inspiring.
It is. Yeah. He went through a lot. And it's incredible. Yeah. And it was something where he started getting into like jogging and exercising. And that was something where he was able to get that routine and get that started. And then he came up with SAVERS is the acronym for everything he does. It's like silence, affirmation, visualization, scripting, so writing. And so he has that set thing every morning. And some of it takes you 1 minute. Yeah. You just visualize, this is what I would like out of my life. And and you spend 5 minutes meditating, and you write in your journal for 2 minutes. So it could be a total of 5 to 8 minutes for you to knock out everything. But just, you do it. It's done. And it's like, if you're able to accomplish that one goal in the morning, then it makes it so much easier to then accomplish more goals later in the day. So that's kind of what I try to, if we kind of take it back to how do you structure your day and kind of business life and all that, is try to get as many of those goals done as possible in the morning. Yeah. So something that's easy that I could just knock out, it would be something like that, where you have the SAVERS, where you silence, and that's just something for me and my personal just mindfulness journey. And then after that for work, okay, what's something that I can finish and accomplish right now in the morning? And then you just kind of use that, and you get traction, and you keep stacking that on top of the other. Because if not, if you have something that, you know what, this is going to take me all day to do, then it's kind of demoralizing, and it's kind of hard to go the whole day, and you haven't really. You
want to accomplish something like nice and sweet.
First. Okay. It's kind of like like Eat This Frog or something like that is another book where talk about just eating the frog is the way the author talks about it. We're just doing the one thing you don't want to do first in the morning,
Mhm.
getting it done, and then that'll set you up for success with everything else. So I think that's probably one of the bigger pieces, or some of the kind of bigger tip that I could give is just starting for yourself first. Make sure that you're good with your baseline with mindfulness and your day, and then start going goal by goal by goal. Why did you get into meditation in the first place? Was there something that was kind of going on and you were trying to overcome it, or was it just natural for you? Because not everybody's into it.
I think my personality, I found it intriguing, but I never knew it works like this. I never knew it was on the basis of like in improving your self-awareness, and also like why do you want to improve your self-awareness? Or actually, is that observer, that watcher aspect is to enable you to make better choices. I think it's like when you, because constantly every day you are making certain decisions, right?
Yeah.
For your exercise, diet, your family, work. So I think everyone has their own standard or habit of doing something. So when certain decisions are not aligning to what you intended to do, I think that watcher will come out like kind of immediately for me. And then you still can do whatever, let's say people on diet, you want, everyone knows not to eat too sweet, right? If you're on a diet, right? So you still can continue to eat your cakes and candies and stuff like that. But I think having the watcher by everybody innately has that. But through meditation, I found that that's helped you to enhance that capability. So when you, back to that dessert example, once you wanted to eat, let's say the first slice, it will prompt you inside your head. Maybe you fell for it, and then but you continue to do it. It will constantly remind you, so you do it. So for me, it kind of like a safeguard.
Yeah.
That's for me. I don't know. How about you? Does it kind of applies to you?
Yeah, I think it does. And it's also, as far as like, there's certain things that happen, or certain things where you can think that you're a certain type of person. Like you can think, okay, I'm a business owner, or I'm a husband, or I'm this type of person, or anything like that. And I think being conscious about it, where you have that watcher, you realize, you know what, that's not you. And your thoughts are not who you are. And then it allows you to not kind of get overwhelmed, or not let your thoughts kind of control what you do. So, because we tend to build, like, I know people where they have this image where, you know what, I'm the CEO of this company.
Yeah, we need to talk more about business. I was talking about desserts.
But we have it where, like, I know people where in the past they've been like, you know what, I'm the CEO of this company, and they've had successful companies, and they've had employees and everything just that normally goes with the company, and they've had a really good success with it. But then, so they build this up where every day, day to day, that's how they tell people, you know what, this is who I am. I'm the CEO. I run this company, all that. But then they tend to get kind of locked into that. So then I've known these same people where it did not go well for their company. It crashed and burned. And what happened was they're no longer the CEO. And it's like, who am I then? What type of person are you? So I think if you're consciously like being the watcher and seeing that, okay, what am I thinking? Who am I? Then you tend to realize that you're not that kind of construct of whatever you think that is. That alter ego of the CEO, or the alter ego of the father, or the husband, or anything like that. So it allows you to be more conscious of who you really are inside. And so not all your decisions are then driven by that. Because if you think that, oh, I'm the CEO, then most of your decisions are going to be like that. If you think I'm the father, I'm the husband, most of that's going to control your decisions. So it kind of allows you to be more free, I think, with it. And just tend to just be more kind of aware of that you're not your thoughts. You're not just whatever's going on with you.
So speaking of like the CEO story, is it like you are not aware of your overconfidence, or your or to a point that you're arrogant, hubris on how you run the company? Is it also kind of you are blind blindsided.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think so because a lot of it, if you have that arrogance and you think that, oh, I am the CEO, I'm the person who makes all decisions, I'm the one responsible for everything, then if something goes bad, it might be out of your control.
yeah,
Like there
yeah,
were a lot of people with 2020 when the whole pandemic
yeah,
happened and
yeah.
everything, they lost their companies, they lost a ton of money, things didn't go well. And if they have that idea that they are their company or they are the CEO, then it's a big blow to your ego.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Uh-huh.
it's
So
once you
what
lose
happens
that,
when you what you so in your network
hmm
you see you experience that people like that
yeah,
went through
yeah,
that.
I've definitely seen that, especially 2020,
Mm,
2021. I
mm-hmm.
saw that with a few people.
How did they deal with it?
So the ones who dealt with it the best were the ones where they didn't necessarily see themselves as this is me. I am the CEO. This is my whole life. This is the construct of who I am. And instead they viewed it as, you know what? This is separate. This is my
Oh, I
company.
see what. Okay.
This is not me. My ego is not driven by how well my
This is
company
just
is
some
doing or
one thing
anything.
that I do.
Yeah, this
Mhm,
is just something that I do. It's part
mhm,
of my one of my roles is I'm a CEO, I'm a husband,
mhm,
I'm a father. And it's not getting caught up in that one thing because then if things go bad, you don't necessarily have that piece where you're tied to it.
mm.
And things like that will happen with my company on just every once in a while. Things will happen where you lose a client or something happens outside of your control. And I try to be mindful where I don't have that piece where I'm tied to it where it's not about me and my self-worth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's more of, you know what? It happens. This is something where it's just part of life and trying to keep that thought where, you know what? I'll figure it out. Have that confidence where, you know, if something does go wrong, you'll figure it out, but it's not going to make me feel like lesser of a person
Mhm, mhm.
because of it. And I don't know if you try to do that like consciously, if you try to disconnect yourself from your company, or is it
Well, I think through mindfulness and as I develop my, through this, self development phase through meditation
Mhm.
and, self awareness, I base some of my learning through the Buddhist principle,
Mhm.
like Zen. I think I naturally aware that, my business doesn't is not all of me. So I am more intrinsically driven to do like the quality of things in the business. So let's say if something really happened, because the mindfulness or from Zen, one of the big principle is the impermanence, right? Impermanence is nothing is really, or in a cliche is change is the only constant. So
Yeah.
I kind of truly believe that. I try to embody that.
Mhm.
So far I guess I'm okay. Of course I don't want anything, you know, extremely bad happen to my business, to my family, to my friends. But I understand that principle, but and being mindful of that impermanence is not being pessimistic,
Mhm.
but it's understanding that it's a way of life. So, and I think while for example, while I was talking to my brother, he kind of shared the same journey, kind of
Mhm.
like me. We understand and kind of remind each other that yeah, every day you see what happens on the news, what happens to other businesses, what happens to our businesses. It's part of impermanence. Let's say you have that you run my marketing campaign, right?
Mhm.
Should I expect every week will be really well or continuously improving? Of course, I want that, but it doesn't happen that way. But also, I think we do take responsibility because even though it is impermanent, you're trying to find ways to optimize it
Yeah.
and do as best as you can. Not to say that, oh, I'm not going to do anything, it's just going to work out the way. I mean,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that. Yeah. So I think it's doing your best in your effort and prioritizing so that it correlate with the result. But at the end of the day, like something happened with the pandemic, what can you do if you run a restaurant at that time
Yeah.
and then they close down, no people? Of course, you're trying to figure out ways such as like some restaurants they, oh, people can come in, can I kind of pivot to doing takeout and delivery, for
Mhm.
example, stuff like that. So you keep on knowing what to focus and trying to adapt. but at the end of the day, you don't control the result because, like I said, in mindfulness and Zen, a second principle is what they call um, um, conditional causations, meaning that there are many different things that work together to um, to make things happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Nothing really stands alone. Like you're from your parents, right?
Hmm.
So you didn't come out of nowhere, right? So and then your parents come from your grandparents, right?
Exactly.
So et cetera, like that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, where just what you were mentioning, I think my mindset or the way that I approach business or just life in
Mm-hmm.
general is there are, and I didn't necessarily always understand this, but you can't control other people, you can't control other circumstances, you can't force it, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're in business, whether you're in relationships. If there's something that you want somebody to do, you can't control it. There's
Yeah,
nothing that I could do to make you do something.
yeah.
But I think, from as far as how I approach just normal work, dealing with clients, day-to-day life, as far as just a business standpoint, is just to know that, you know what, I'm going to do 100% of everything that I can,
Yeah.
to make sure that I am checking off the boxes and giving it 100% of my effort.
Mm-hmm.
Is it always going to work out the way perfectly that it should? No.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be things that come up where there's going to be a pandemic, or it's just going to be things where, if you're doing marketing and it's just going to be a weird time of year, or it's going to be some event that happens in the news, that it could be the Super Bowl's happening right now and that throws things off, or it
Mm-hmm.
could be Valentine's Day or Christmas or anything like that. And it's just, with my mindset is, you know what, if I know deep down that I'm doing 100% of everything that I can, and I'm giving it my all, then if something happens, then it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing where I'll have regrets for it, and nothing where I'll feel like, oh, it should have been something different than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the extent of the control that I
Yeah.
could do. And the
Mm-hmm.
same, like if you're in a relationship, it's just the same thing, whether it's a business relationship, friends, partner, or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, you know what, give it your all, give it 110%,
Yeah.
and then try to kind of step back and, for lack of a better word, kind of release yourself from the outcome, or
Yeah.
step back and not be connected to that outcome of it.
Yeah.
Because everything is it can be so random. There's so many things that could come up. And if you're not like tied to this has to work, then all you could do is keep checking those boxes, so you're doing the best thing that you can,
Mm-hmm.
and just slowly start to take those baby steps and start to hit those little milestones along the way. And I think that tends to help with like anxiety, or tends
Yeah.
to make it so it's not as stressful day to day, because no matter how hard you try, you can't force someone to buy something, or you can't
Yeah.
force an employee to do whatever they should be doing. You can only teach them, tell them this is what you need to do, give them whatever guidelines they should follow for it,
Mm-hmm.
or try to set everything up so a customer can understand why they should buy from you, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, all it really comes down to is just checking those boxes every day and working towards that goal. So I think that's something where it just kind of helps with anxiety, I think, and
Uh-huh.
stress for me. And I don't know if quite you have that same mindset, where do you feel like, you know what, as long as I'm giving 110%,
Mm-hmm.
then you could kind of step back from the outcome of it?
Yeah,
Or,
I think so. I mean, speaking for businesses, of course, you do need to make intellectual
mm-hmm.
decisions, like for example, knowing the numbers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Uh, if you don't know that, you should at least have someone that is trustworthy in the business to know that, and you should at least know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like how to read like a profit and loss statement,
Yes.
and how to adjust your capital and things like that. And those are important mechanically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the more in the deeper level of, let's say, when things, and a lot of the times I think there are two things. When things don't go well, how do you manage it? And second thing I heard a lot and I do see is when things go really well, but it was temporary, like the
Mm-hmm.
feeling of like exuberance, is it what you
Yep.
call it? It's very temporary. So the first one, when things don't go well, first I think we need to accept, like through the mindfulness practice, I think is you need to understand it's normal to to dislike the result.
Hmm.
Okay, let's say you have a very poor performance. You might have some responsibility. Your staff maybe have some responsibility, or simply macro, but still maybe you weren't able to adapt as quickly as you should have. So those all come into play. You just, I think, from my practice is there are four things. First, you have to face the situation. You have to like face and accept is the first step, and then manage the the way that as best as you can, and then let go. So we don't go like, oh, just let go. Oh, I have a poor performance this month or this quarter. Oh, I just let it go. You kind of like skipping the steps. It was kind of like me in the past, like trying to let go, and then that actually came back and haunt me because like I remember my like thinking back,
Hmm.
my friend she didn't say anything, but I remember now went through my journey. Now I have some improvement through the Zen practice. Is one time a long time ago I was still selling like Hawaiian jewelry.
Hmm.
So one time the we had like this tiny office space, and then one morning we went in, we it got broke in.
Oh no.
So a lot of the our silver jewelry were stolen. Okay, so my friend were there, and then she commented. We were all seeing this at the scene, and then my immediate reaction was, "Oh, it's okay.
Hmm.
Everything will be fine. We'll go through it." So I kind of like thinking back, I skipped the stage of uh, um, like being sad, being or even angry
Yeah.
or stuff like that. Right? Of course, internally, I felt that, but my immediate reaction was, "Oh, it'll be okay. Uh, what uh, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger." I immediately like kind of jumped the step. It was me. I was kind of like that.
Hmm.
So ended up that I mean through the my journey of it was years back, but thinking back because when I was consulting with my life coach, um, then we kind of came across that was kind of my personality. I you can say there it was repressed. Maybe
Hmm.
part of that, like not liking to be angry or not liking to be upset. Maybe it was repressed.
Yeah.
So through meditation, I noticed that, and then I'm able to accept those what like socially unacceptable behaviors. You can say,
Hmm.
people don't want to be shown like angry with or stuff like that, right? Like
Yeah.
rage and stuff like that. But it is normal to have such feelings, whatever negative patterns you might have.
Hmm.
But just like what Eckhart Tolle, that
Hmm.
I'm reading that book too, like being like a watcher, so that you not identify like those negative thought patterns are not you, and then it's normal to have, of course you don't want to every minute of your day are consumed by those thoughts, and then you kind of feed into it, right?
Yeah.
By being able to observe, and then there's some techniques we can talk about like in later too, is you can kind of bring it back to the present, and naturally I feel like those will go away
Hmm.
if you don't feed on it, like, oh, I'm angry. Oh yeah, so and so should not do this to me. Why you can break in so many places, but you have to break into my office?
Yeah.
And then kind of like what they call mental formations, right?
Hmm.
One of the five aggregates I've learned from Zen, from the Buddhist theory, is like your mind is playing the story like a broken records, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of understand like how like our minds work, and like you said, your thoughts and emotions, they are not me, they're just they come out for a certain reason, or and then you just kind of be aware of them and then just move on and continue to accept it, manage it, move on, and kind of the pattern just become, if that becomes a good habit, like then I think it will work out well.
So I'm curious, are you of the mindset that everything happens for a reason?
I am
Yeah.
I think I lean more toward to that.
Hmm.
um, Even what seems to be an accident, I felt like there are some things that just because of our current intellectual or science cannot prove it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not out there. But I do. I believe in science.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to believe the same thing, and didn't necessarily always think that before. But then it's just weird when you look back on things that happen in your life. Who knows if it just worked out and you just make the best of it
Yeah,
with
yeah,
how
that
everything
plays a
is,
big part. Yeah.
and you're just saying, you know what, okay, everything worked out and it's fine. But it's just some things where I guess it kind of goes back to the mindfulness and realizing that, you know what, it'll be okay. If there are things like where you have that break in, if there are things like you're in an accident or someone's going through a really difficult time, just kind of stepping back and like, you know what, things will work out.
Yeah.
It'll be okay. And it kind of, I do have that same mindset where there were things like years ago where it just seemed like really terrible situations.
Uh-huh.
Like you'll never get over it. It'll be just like end of the world kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And then I look back now on how everything transpired, and I'm like actually happy that it happened
Yeah.
because of how everything worked out. And I couldn't imagine it working out a better way.
Uh-huh.
So I think kind of if you reverse engineer that and assume when something bad does happen when you're in the moment that, you know what, maybe there is a reason for it.
At the moment, it's hard.
It's hard. It's
At the
so
moment,
hard.
it's hard. But I think that's why the mindfulness for like this segment we're talking about mindfulness will what happens to a lot of business owners or not business owners is it gives you that spaciousness.
Yeah.
Like you are able to have this gap to be like an observer of your situations so that it doesn't consume you. Like you're not this terrible thing that happened is not you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it just it's kind of like a muscle. The more that you do it, the more you go through those experiences, the more that you practice mindfulness, the stronger that it gets, and the easier it gets for you to do that. Because I mean, like I've been running my company for almost a decade now, from when I started way back when.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
It took a few years to get traction. There were things that went well. There were things that went bad. And there were situations where, oh, you know what, this is the worst thing ever that'll happen, and it wasn't, and you keep going and everything's okay. So I think that the mindfulness part helps you kind of have a way to step back and just kind of see, you know what, it'll be okay. You're more observant of how everything's going. You can reflect on what's happened in the past and kind of be like, you know what, everything will work out. And sometimes it's not that easy.
Yeah. How about this? We end today's first podcast with you by each of us think of one last questions that either you might going through or what you think a lot of the entrepreneurs who might thought about doing meditations or mindfulness practice but haven't started. But one more thing that really can relate to them. I have one. Maybe I'll share first.
Okay.
A lot of I came across a lot of entrepreneurs. They just have a lot going on in their mind. I think, like they say, oh, you know, I heard this many times before. Oh, I like meditation. It's cool, but I think what their definition or what they think meditation is to them is like they thought it's like magic. It's like a magic blue pill, or whatever colored pill. And then they would say that, but once they sit down, all the thoughts come.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think for my last question. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I'm no expert by any means in it. I'm very, not huge expert into meditation.
Do you
but
feel that once you sit down in the beginning?
Yeah,
you do sitting meditation, right?
If I go back to, okay, what did I view it as? It seems like, oh, you know what, you need this app where you need to go step by step to make sure you're following all these right practices for meditation.
You're kind of hardcore, right? You have steps.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like this huge, overwhelming thing that you have to do. But then if you actually see how it is, and if you hear people that are really into meditation talk about it, it's really not doing anything.
Yeah.
And there was a book that I read, which I told you about before, Into the Magic Shop.
Oh yeah, that's a really nice book. I'll put the link in.
It's an excellent book. Yeah. It kind of changes your perspective on it because it's a surgeon's kind of journey where how he discovered meditation as a kid, how it helped him as he keeps going through life, and just how he viewed it, and that it can be a lot simpler than what people see it as. It can be as simple as, one example in the book was when he was first getting started with it, he had all these thoughts that were going on in his head, and he's just trying to calm them down and trying to get rid of the thoughts. But one thing that he did was took a candle, light the candle, have it in front of you, and all you do is just focus on the flame.
Yeah.
And that's all you
Because
think about.
that's the candle is is part of your present moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So by focusing that, you are bringing back your, because many times, like you said in the beginning, I think thoughts, many times negative thought patterns, or just like thought patterns, are you thinking back about your past, or you're worrying about the future, right?
Yeah.
But with that candle example, is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
So by focusing, then you bring back all your attention, like at least your sight is watching
Yeah.
the candle, right?
And I've tried that before, and it's a
Ah.
really good way to just be in the present moment. And you could even do it where they have YouTube candles where you just take out your phone and you can watch the candle on YouTube and watch the flame. And all you're doing is just focusing on something. So some people, you could do it that way. Some people also just focus on their breath. And that's all, and you're just focusing on one specific thing. Or people, you just look at a point on the wall and not try to force your thoughts out, not try to just not have them, but just be okay with them being there.
Yeah. And it's difficult at first when especially you have, let's say some people, they have certain trauma, or because normally when you sit down, why you have all these thoughts come, it's not that you don't have them. It's just that you were so busy with your normal life. That's why when people say, oh, when they sleep, and sleeping, a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't sleep well, right?
Yeah.
It's when you have the silence, the thoughts will come, because that's when the water settles down, and then you can see clearly. And I think, like you said, it's difficult to watch it, especially if those are strong thoughts or emotions. But by slowly, so that's why there are techniques like the candles, or people say going back to your breath. As you do more and more, then it becomes like a natural habit, and then it takes it. I think study shows like 7 to 8 weeks, you will see a difference. Do you see that? Is that kind of the time frame for you?
Normally, I mean, with any habit, it kind of takes that long for you to develop it and for it to become a habit with it. But if I just do it for like a couple days, it'll help a little bit. But
from a beginner, like never came across, do you feel like after a few days you feel a difference too?
Even after a few days.
Oh, okay.
Just if I mean, I went through a period where I didn't do it that much for maybe a year or 2 years, something like that. And then when I got back into it, and when I was doing it on a regular day-to-day practice, it was just after even the first time, I noticed that, you know what, I actually feel a lot clearer in my mind.
Is it because you kind of know how it works? That's why it's easier for you to...
I don't even know if it's because I know how it works. I think it's just the practice of being there, being in the moment, being present, and just having the chance where you're able to just slow down and able to not have all those thoughts running in your head and just pause.
And you're not expecting anything from it.
Yeah, actually. There's nothing. It's like you're not trying to achieve anything. It's like the perfect thing. It's not trying to get anything from it.
Yeah.
You're just trying to be in the moment, be there, and not be so focused on an outcome of something. It's like the opposite. You're not trying to achieve an outcome.
Yeah. You're
just trying to not achieve an outcome.
Yeah, I heard this from this Zen master. I think his name is Yonggi Mingyur Rinpoche. Sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. But he was saying the same thing. It's like you're not trying to force anything or expect, like you want, like people said they meditate, they want to be calm. So he explained it really well. It's like when you sit down, meditate, and say, if you want, calmness, come to me now. And then calmness say, sorry, I'm busy today. Yes. So the more you expect that, because sometimes like on your first time or the first couple of times, like you had a really, really good feeling in meditation. But when you start to expect that it's the feeling that you get every time, like calm, no thoughts, and so for the 10 minutes, like that is actually contrary to being in the present moment, like being okay with whatever it is.
And I think by doing that, and if you do have the regular practice and you are comfortable with that,
then it happens more often.
Then it not only happens with your meditation, but it happens in your normal day-to-day life, because you're like, you know what, I don't have to control it. I can't control it.
Yeah.
And you just accept that, okay, just let it happen.
Yeah.
And then it's okay.
Yeah.
So I think it does grow into other things besides just that 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's a very good point. And So that was my last questions how about you?
So I guess my question is just as far as what do you actually do when you meditate?
What do I actually do?
And it might be, and you just tell me if it's nothing or if it's something. What is your regular practice that you do?
I prefer not having any expectation at all. So I just sit there and I would be aware. So there one thing I need to mention is since my practice was sort of based from the Buddhist meditation theory. So what there's like I think when you translate it is like there's a focal point
Mm-hmm.
if you need it. So in the beginning, I remember the very beginning, I used that a lot. It's just focus back on my breath, especially when I notice that I'm drifting away. You might be drifting away thinking about something non-important like what to eat tomorrow or what I ate this lunch or whatever, or or sometimes it could be like something unpleasant could be past. So once you remember the observer, once I
Mm-hmm.
notice that, I will use that and bring back to my breath. Like come back because the breath is always, if you don't have your breath, you die, right? So
True.
that always accompany you. So by returning my consciousness or awareness to the breath, it brings back. So you might lost track again, drift away, but once you notice that, you come back. So by having this ability to notice you drifted away every time, it's a successful practice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's by going through that, it kind of conditioned me to, sometimes you might get caught up. That's normal, like something unpleasant or something pleasant
Mm-hmm.
that you caught up. But once you notice it, just come back. So I think that's my foundation,
Mm-hmm.
even to this day, because nobody is perfect and nobody is all calm and like no thoughts, right? That's not human.
Yeah.
So my practice now, going back, is normally I would just sit there. I would to begin the first couple minutes, I just kind of aware of the present. Most of the time, I can easily feel my air going through my nose and out, so I can feel like sensations around here.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of helped me settles in. So I settle in pretty quickly. But I would say 80% of the time is just go with the flow, sit down, be present, um, and notice using my senses. Sometimes I would listen to whatever's outside. I notice maybe a car passes
Mm-hmm.
by, maybe my neighbor's doing something, or maybe a car really far passes by. I just notice, but I don't got that carry away. Just because I think my brother taught me this. The main core principle of from most of his teachers say of meditation and mindfulness is that to notice, to know what's
Yeah.
going on. No, don't judge it, to know it. Bad things happen, know it. You have this happy feeling, you notice it. So it's like that is the core foundation, and I think that's true. Just to be aware, aware, aware.
I wish you can do that also during the day, normal day to day,
Yeah,
everyday kind of thing. You don't
yeah,
have to necessarily always have it where, okay, I have this only 10-minute block in the morning where
yeah,
that's the only time I'm going to be mindful and meditate. I
yeah,
mean, you could be, as you mentioned, you told me before, like you could be driving and
yeah,
you're just focused and in the moment and being mindful. You could be standing in line waiting to
yeah,
go into the movies
yeah.
and you just be mindful.
One last bonus for me that in
Mm-hmm.
like this question is like sometimes I would take out the trash. Like I'm the guy to take out the trash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's natural for me to notice my steps to the trash bin and the
Yeah.
steps coming back. I don't, not every step I am so mindful of,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, maybe it's through my practice. Is there are moments in throughout the day I would just like those little things. I'm mindful. Yeah,
I try to do the same thing. If I go
yeah,
take my dog for a walk, I'll be mindful of my steps I'm
yeah.
doing,
Or the feeling you're holding delicious and
yeah,
stuff like that, right?
or actually like look around and be mindful of look at the trees or look at
Yeah.
what's going on. And there's
Mhm.
stuff that it's probably 500 times I've done the same lap with my dog, and there's still things I haven't noticed in the
Yeah, yeah.
past.
That's true.
And it's
Yeah,
like how do you miss that? And
yeah,
it's like being mindful, taking a moment, stepping back, and appreciating. It could be flowers on the
yeah.
trees, it could be a building, anything, the clouds,
Mhm.
and it just kind of puts you in a different mind space
Yeah,
and makes you more, I guess, grateful or more
yeah.
appreciative too for
I
things.
think it's kind of training and cultivating these feelings of compassion and wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and and you think about it, if you can't, even the little things you cannot be mindful of, how can you be mindful when there are difficult situations
Exactly.
that you gravitate with so much emotions and things like that? It's through these little things that help prepare you for when unexpected things or bigger achievements and things like that, so that um, you can continue on your journey uh, and be wise, be joyful, and yeah, like that.
I agree.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. That's it right today.
That sounds good.
Oh
That's
yeah,
a good
yeah,
way
yeah.
to wrap
I
it up.
think we will continue. So if you like it, I don't know how many people are going to see this. We're gonna make shorts from this. We're gonna make the whole full length content. So if you want to encourage us, give us a like, subscribe.
Yeah. Comment if there's anything specific to talk about, and
Yeah.
we can kind of go from there.
All right.
All right. See you guys next time.
Thank you.